everyone. I'm Charles Laughlin. I'm managing editor of BIA Kelsey, and I'm here today with a couple of our analysts to talk about some interesting stuff we've got coming up. Content marketing and call monetization are two of the biggest topics in the space that we cover, local digital media broadly defined. And each of these topics is going to be covered in depth in some papers we've got coming up, and we've got the authors on today to tell us a little bit, give us a little preview on what they're working on. So first we're going to have Abid Chaudhry. Abid, say hello.
Hey folks, how's it going?
And we're also with us Mike Boland. Mike?
Hi.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start with you, Abid. Content marketing, it's a big buzzword, everyone hears it all the time. Kind of put it in context for what we're how are we talking about content marketing? What are the issues you're tackling? What's the angle on it for the paper that you've got coming up?
Sure. Well, you know, it's interesting. Content marketing has had a bunch of different definitions in the last few years, and the most recent definition that's come about is basically having a marketing solution that covers all the different types of channels where a small business might meet its consumer. And one of the things that's come up that is really interesting is that content marketing for SMB specifically is starting to take over as the primary advertising budget spend for most small businesses. And that's really interesting because what that means is that things like social media, things like mobile, and all sorts of different ways of getting advertising in front of a consumer, like native advertising that's coming up and coming, are all starting to take over from the world of performance advertising, which used to be all about clicks and leads. And the paper that we'll be publishing soon is going to cover how small businesses have transitioned from that spend of clicks into leads into customers into having a lot more of a marketing plan, a marketing strategy, and that the name of the game right now is consolidation. Folks that used to do direct mail and direct marketing only versus social media and reputation management are all coming together to perform integrated solutions, and I think that that's the future content marketing as small businesses are going to be taking it.
So, Abid, is content marketing a proven method? Is it?
Well, it depends on what you mean by proven method, right? So there's different metrics that you can use to talk about the effectiveness or the ROI of content marketing. But the real nuts and bolts of it for small businesses is it making the phone ring, and are we getting more customers through the door? It used to be that with different types of solutions prior to big data and a lot of these new algorithmic platforms coming up, that you couldn't really figure out if they were really effective outside the fact that you got the exposure, you got the impressions. But with some of the platforms and some of the content marketing, integrated marketing platforms that are coming out, you're seeing a lot more of the ability for a small business to be able to intelligently figure out where they actually should be spending their budgets within a content marketing plan based on actual leads that can be tracked back through things like call tracking, things like click for call, for example. And I think that now we can say that it's a lot more proven now than we were just a few years ago.
Okay. Now, what are the limitations, very quickly, before we move on to Mike? What are sort of, in terms of the small business market, what are the limitations of content marketing? Where does it not serve the small business well?
So here's the rub, right? So it's a long-term plan. Content marketing by nature is something that you basically have to invest in, and it's a marathon. It's not a sprint where you can basically go, if you're a small business trying to grow your lead count and get some new customers and start your business right. Content marketing won't give you that instant or even medium-term gratification. You have to really wait a long time. So in those cases, a small business might be better off purchasing performance advertising or search marketing. Another place where it might not be the best suited or it's not the perfect fit is for, just like I just mentioned, those small businesses that are just getting off the ground and don't have a lot of money to spend, because oftentimes content marketing programs combined can cost as much as you would be spending on traditional performance advertising, which is an interesting point because it used to be the opposite.
And one last question: how do media companies that are traditionally selling print advertising or pay-per-call advertising or any kind of performance digital advertising, how well positioned are they to play in the content marketing game?
Well, they can act as brokers, right? They can act as the actual agency for a small business and work with other partners. An example of this is the Dallas Morning News, where they work with a company called Speakeasy that is 100% aligned to creating dynamic content marketing programs and advertising for small businesses, but at the same time gives the Dallas Morning News the ability to actually keep their sales organization intact, and it's working pretty well for them. So I think that sales organizations and media organizations are finding that if the transition is difficult, it's not too difficult to get around.
Okay, thanks, Abid. We're really looking forward to reading what you have to say about this. It'll be coming out pretty soon. So we're going to switch over to Mike. And Mike, you're working on a paper around the whole issue of call monetization, which is a pretty broad category. And we did a big sort of foundation, what we called it back then, foundation paper on this a couple of years ago. Is this fair to say this is sort of version 2 of that document, or tell us a little bit about it?
That's a good way to look at it. You know, we did that paper, some viewers might remember, about a year ago, but the topic has evolved so quickly in that short time, it's really worth a refresh. So it is kind of a V2, but also it's really a whole new look because of some of the changes in the marketplace. So, you know, what are those changes in the marketplace? What's driving all of this? You know, number one is, at the most basic level, smartphone penetration, is now at about 63%. And that's created a really kind of fertile environment for call-based mobile advertising to grow. And there's lots of local search happening on the mobile device. Buyer intent is high to transact and to find things locally and make phone calls. And all of our data support all of that. But if you pan back, you know, in print and on the desktop, pay per call as a medium was very much alive, and it's been going on for a while. But because that was really kind of leafing through pages or searching on Google, that was physically separated from the phone. But now with the search device literally bolted to the phone, we see an explosion of call volume, and that's going to happen to the tune of about 65 billion calls per year by 2016, we're forecasting. So that's really the underlying factor, the volume of calls. And again, these are high intent mobile searches that tend to convert at higher rates than from the desktop. So that's reason one. And reason two, which is a lot quicker to explain, is simply that businesses want phone calls. Our SMB survey data indicate that calls are the most valued form of lead, and especially in lots of high value, high spend verticals like professional services that book appointments over the phone, or insurance and travel. So in closing, it's one of those rare cases where the user behavior, reason one that I mentioned, driving all those calls, is aligned with the advertiser interest, reason number two, in placing a high ROI value on those calls. So with that backdrop, we cover all the things that are developing in the marketplace and who's doing what. A lot of interesting stuff.
One area that's always fascinating to me is the increasingly robust science around measuring call quality. Yeah. Is that a big part of what you're going to talk about?
It is. Call analytics is huge, and it's compelled by the explosion in call volume that I mentioned. And one of the biggest things is that, you know, large businesses and small businesses have to deal with this call volume, and there's a high opportunity cost for dealing with what we call junk calls. It could be telemarketers, it could be asking for directions. So a lot of these analytics actually in real time will analyze call quality on really kind of a wide qualitative scale to be able to route calls. It's really a matter of call routing that's coming up. It's a really interesting area to be able to use these analytics to, again, route calls that might be taking up businesses' time, small businesses, that's a big pain point and opportunity cost, but also in sales teams. If you picture incoming calls, the ability to algorithmically determine a high quality sales lead and route that to the best rep, it can really boost things like close rates. So there's a lot to this in the analytics, yes.
All right, good stuff.